Hi, Mandy here from Needles, Thread and Little Betty. Welcome to the final part, and I can't remember if it's 5 or 6, of the Dreamy Owl quilt. So if you've been following this series, you'll know from the very first one that we're making this Dreamy Owl quilt from a kit by Free Spirit with using the Tula Pink fabric. Okay. So what we've done so far, I won't go through parts because I can't remember if this is 5 or 6. I broke it right down because I didn't want to do really lengthy videos. And also, if you're kind of taking tips, it gives you a chance to keep up. And then by the time I've done the next one, you know where we're at, if that makes sense. So we started off with talking about the fabrics, cutting out the fabrics, putting the fabrics together, building the blocks, and then making, completing the quilt top, making the quilt sandwich, and doing the quilting. So now we're on the final bit, and this is putting the binding on. Okay. So what I've done is in the kit itself, it tells you when you're cutting out, it tells you about the kind of sizes and the length of strips that you need, and obviously the fabric's there for that. And I believe, let's just have a quick look. These look like they're 3-inch strips. Let's have a look. So 2.5-inch strips, and that was of the width of the fabric to make the strips. So there's several of these which you need to sew together. So you've got one long piece to go all the way around the outside of your quilt. And this is I think it's a 64 by 64 inch quilt, so it's quite a big square. And so you're going to have a really long piece when you put these together. So to put these together, and I've already started this, you just take these strips and basically sewing the ends together. And to do that, what you need to do is we're going to sew them together, not crossways like that, but we're going to do them diagonal. And if you do them diagonal, what you'll get is this kind of neat, I don't even think you can see that on there, but you get this neat diagonal line across there, and you end up with that little bit at the back, but we're going to trim that off. Okay, so I've got the last couple of pieces to do, and I'll show you how I'm going to do them. So I'll just bring you in a little bit closer. So I'm just laying one piece flat on my machine, and I'm just using my normal 2.54 mil stitch, and you just place the other one on the top. And just as a practice, what you need to do, because we're going to go from diagonal to diagonal, that's from one end of the strip to the end of the underneath strip, is if you hold them on top of each other and then just kind of fold it back, you'll see how that looks. I'm not showing you that very well on the camera, am I? So you hold your strip at an angle like that, one on top of the other, and when you've sewn them together, the second strip will fold back like that, but I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so on my machine I've got one strip on top, and you've got to kind of keep this quite precise, because if you don't, when you fold it back, it's not going to be level, and if you start having pieces not level, it just makes it a little bit a little bit more fiddly to get that binding on when you're finished. So I've just put a couple of little clips on just to keep it still where I want it. And I'm going to place my needle right in the very corner, and that's this corner here where the two pieces meet. Place my needle right in, making sure that it's all level. Put down. And I'm just making sure I know where it's going to finish, and that's at the other corner of the first strip. Okay. And I'm just going to sew a straight line all the way to the other corner. And then what you end up with when you fold it back, you end up with them joined neatly at a diagonal. And if you look at, that's how we started, so it goes across then down, but when you fold the second piece back, you get that straight line. Okay, so I'm just going to do that again for the very last piece. We start with one piece like that. With the next one, I want it going down, so I've got one across, one down, right sides together. Place on the edge, so you've got that kind of right angle at the edge. I'm going to pop a clip there and a clip there just to help keep them together. Pop it under my machine, keeping that right angle straight the whole time. And I'm just going to pop my needle in right at the corner of where the two fabrics meet. And I want to finish right at the edge again at the corner where the two fabrics meet. One straight line. And there you have it again. Okay, so if you're doing binding this way, I mean, there's lots of ways of doing binding for a quilt. That's it. You level now. There's lots of ways of doing binding for a quilt, and this is a square quilt, so you just need strips of fabric basically. And this is just one method of putting the pieces together. So no matter how many strips that you have, it's just a method of putting them together. You can do it straight down if you want to. This just makes it that little bit neater. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to trim the backs of each of these where they've kind of sewn together. So you've got them little triangles at the back, just so it's about 1/2 inch at the back. I'm just going to trim them each one down. So just going all the way along. If you were doing a binding on something that was that had a shape to it, so sort of curves or circles or something like that, then you would do like a bias binding. Now, for a bias binding, what you do is you the fabric that you use, unless you can buy it pre-made, but the fabric that you use, if you're making it yourself, you just need to cut the fabric strips out on the bias, and that's crossways. So you buy, say if you bought a meter of fabric, and it kind of comes in a square meter, or depending on the width of the fabric, but typically a rectangle square shape. What you do if you're cutting something on the bias, you cut it diagonally along that, and what that does is that helps give that those strips a little bit of a stretch in them, so they can maneuver around curves and shapes a lot easier. And that's cutting something on the bias to make bias binding. Okay, I'll get there in the end. So almost at the end. So you've got, once you've done this, you've got one long strip. And what you need to do if you're cutting your strips out, the amount you need to have it. It's best to have it slightly longer, the finished strip, than what you need, just so that you've got some. If you just did it and once you put it on, it's just that tiny bit short, that's going to be so frustrating. So just make it longer than what you need. Any spare you can always put in your scrap drawer for something else to use later on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to turn around to the iron. I should have you all set up so you can see a lot of this. And I'm just going to iron those open, each of those seams open. Just pull it open. Careful not to burn your finger like I've just done. Should have put this ironing board a bit lower if I'm not going to get up. That's it. You can still see, looking around to see if you can still see what I'm doing. Oh dear. Okay. Just all your seams. I mean, I gave these strips a good press before I started putting them together, so I know I don't need to go all over that again. Nearly there. And then, like I say, there's different people can do lots of different methods of binding, and that all depends how you want the edge of your quilt to be. So this makes a little bit of a frame around the edge of the quilt, which is what's on the kit, but you can do it kind of so you don't have the frame around, and that's basically just folding your binding to the back. I won't go into details like that because I'm not doing it that way, but I'm sure in another video I will, and then I can talk you through that at the time. But this is just my way of putting binding on for around the edge of your quilt to get that frame. Now, I'm not actually looking at the kit instructions for this, I'm just putting it on the way I put it on. So you might have a better way of doing that, and that, which is absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do now is I've ironed all those open. I'm going to iron this in half, this fabric in half. And what that does is that just helps me kind of work out where I need, how the measurement of what I need for putting it on the quilt. Okay, getting my words mixed up again. You know what I'm like by now. So you certainly don't have to iron this in half. I mean, for other things, what I sometimes do is I've got that in half. I'll sometimes open it out and then fold those bits in half again and do it that way. What you end up with is it round the edge of the quilt like that. But I don't think I'm doing that for this one. it will be folded in that similar way. But I kind of know what I'm doing, so I don't really need to do that for this one. She says, famous last words. So I'm just ironing all the way along here. Probably making it hard for myself because I'm not standing up. What I've done is I've sorted my sewing room out and I've moved things around, and I've done that in a way so it's easier for me to kind of talk to you and have access to all my bits and pieces at the same time, so that I'm not moving the camera around too much. I'll probably in a while look back at some of these videos and think, well, that was a silly idea, and put it all back again. But anyway, we'll see. As long as you see what I'm doing, I don't suppose it matters that much. Nearly there. I'm sure you really want to watch me do all the signing. If you've got ways of doing your own binding that's different to this, pop something in the chat, because it's nice to share ideas, isn't it? And there might be people that are watching that have never really done binding before, might buy their binding or whatever, and it helps everyone if people share ideas. Because the weather's a little bit better now in the UK, that is. It might be nice all the time where you are, or not from the other end of the spectrum. But because the weather's a little bit better, and it's quite warmish, quite warm today, sun's out. This is quite a hot job to do. It's making me sweat a bit. There you go. That's it. It took a bit longer than I thought, but hey ho. Right. Let's bring it back round. So I've now got reels and reels of this stuff. So the next part is for putting the binding on. And I'm going to get the quilt. So this is the way, again, there might be an easier way to do it, or might have a different, might not be easier, but a more preferred way, but this is the way that I put it on. If you've seen any of I did some at Christmas time, a table runner, and I think I did stockings or something. I don't know if I put binding on them, but I did some binding on one of the Christmas videos, and I'm using if you've seen that, I'm using exactly the same method. So I'm going to start one end, pick a corner, any corner, and get my binding. And what I'm going to do is overlap. So wherever I start, I'm going to leave probably around about that much. Might be a bit more actually. At the top of the quilt, okay. Just leave that dangling. And the reason I'm doing that is, one, it's for any allowance, just in case this wasn't big enough or whatever, I've got some extra allowance. But two, when I join the binding up, when I've gone all the way around, I don't want to join it up on this corner. I want to join it just off a little bit. Just so if you join it on the corner, it's more noticeable, whereas if it's kind of hidden along a little bit, then it's less noticeable. You shouldn't really notice it anyway, unless you're going for a competition or something and it's quite scrutinised. You know, no one's really going to notice, but hey ho, just makes it that bit neater. So you're starting with a little bit over the top, and what I'm going to do is I've got it on the fold, open it up, open the fold up like that, and I'm just going to put a few clips in using the little quilting clips. You can do it with needles if you want to, it doesn't really matter. Just I find clips easier when I'm doing this, easier to put on and then take off again. So I'm not going to clip. Some people clip all the way around. I'm not going to clip all the way around. And the reason I don't clip all the way around is because I find that as you're sewing along, it kind of, as you're sewing, the foot swooshes the fabric out, and it ends up gathering up, and you end up keep moving all the clips. Once you've moved a couple of clips, you've got to move them all. So I just start basically with a few clips. Okay. Now what you've got to remember is how you clip them on. I've clipped this right at the end, but I'm just going to check now, because when this is finished, this is going to fold over and then it's going to go under on the other side, okay, to do the back part of the quilt. So you're clipping it right sides together, but remember you've got this fold, and that's going to fold and come over to the back of the quilt. And what you'll probably find is where the distance that you've sewn it, this is going to fold there, but then you've got your crease for the top. I hope that makes sense. I'll just show you again. Probably making it sound more complicated than what it is, but it's not complicated really. So that's the fold I've just ironed in. I'm opening it out at the moment. I'm clipping down. Now I'm going to be sewing along this seam, probably about 1/4 of an inch along this seam. So that then will fold back there to the edge of the sewing. And then this top part here will fold over the edge of the quilt, and then you'll have an overhang at the back. When it comes to the back, I always hand sew mine, but I'll show you what I'll do then. Okay, so I'm just going to start off by, I've done a few clips, I'm just going to start off by sewing, and all I want is that sort of 1/4 of an inch seam line. Okay, I'll bring it to the machine. There we go. Now you've got to remember as well, this is going through layers this time. And also I've got all this ravel down, so I'm just going to pop that all on my knee. Now because it's quite a big quilt, obviously it's going to take a little while to get it all sort of straight and neat, and you've got to remember you've got this at the side, so just bunch that up. I'm going to move the first clip down a little bit. Now with your 1/4 of an inch seam, because obviously I trimmed this off after you watched the last video, I think I said the last thing I was going to do was trim it off. I've trimmed it off so all the fabric's at the same level. So once you've done your 1/4 of an inch, there should be nowhere on the quilt that it doesn't take in all the fabrics. Okay. So I've got my 1/4 of an inch mark. So if you remember, I put a bit of tape on, and I'm just going to start right at the edge. And all I'm going to do is sew 1/4 of an inch all the way down to the other end of the quilt. Moving the clips as I go. And because I've only put a couple of clips on, it doesn't take more than a second or two. So I'm going to come to do that, and then when I come to the end, I'll come back to you and show you how I'm going to go around the corner. All right, see you in a minute. Hi, so I'm just coming to the end. I've done one corner. I'm just coming to the end of another corner to show you what I'm doing, and I'll just turn you around so you can hopefully see where we're at. So what I'm doing is I'm going straight to the very end. Now I know some people do it a different way where they leave a gap at the end, but this is the way I do it. I'm just going straight to the end, keeping that 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I'm fastening off. Then what I do is I turn it round and with the, let's move that up there a minute. So with this end piece, what I'm going to do then is I fold a bit like we did when we sewn the bits together. Just fold one again, so I've got the top part of my binding that I've not sewn on yet straight in line with the edge of the quilt. Just fold it up and then fold it back again. So then I end up, it's a little bit like an envelope, so then I end up with this right angle, these square lines all matching. So that is folded over, but it's folded at an angle, okay? And once I've got to there, I pop that corner, making sure it's all straight, because if it's not straight, it might just pucker a little bit underneath. And I'll put my 1/4 inch again, put my needle in, and I start, put foot down, that would help, and I start sewing down the next side. Okay, I'll show you on this corner what you end up with. So you've got it sewn together like that, but when you fold the binding back, it folds over the corner like that, and you get this, you get this kind of like this neat little mitre there. Okay, so I'm going to go down the next side. Oops, I'm going to knock everything off my little table. Oh blimey, you can tell when something's live, can't you? So I'm going to go down the next side now, and 1/4 inch still and down, because this is quite a large quilt. What you need to do is just make sure that you've got enough cotton on your reel, and also cotton underneath. And I'll probably get this side done. I might have to change the bobbin after that, we'll see. But I just need to keep my eye on that. Okay. So I'll sew all the way down this edge. I'll show you that corner again. And then what I'll do is should be on the final edge then, because I'd already done one corner. And then I'll show you how we attach the two binding ends together. Okay. I'll put you on, I'll probably speed this a little bit up because you don't want to be watching all of this. Right, so I'm coming to the corner again, and I'll just quickly show you again. So just sew right to the end. Fasten off your stitch. Turn your quilt around for the next corner. Still finding the odd safety pin in this. And this is my final corner, I believe. Yep. And again, so I've got the corner like that. I need to fold this up so that I'm at a right. I've got that at a right angle again. So this is one long length. Give it a bit of a finger press if you want. It just helps make it that bit more precise. Then fold this top bit. My arm's in the way. Fold this top bit over and down. So then you end up with a right angle like that. And this last bit of you don't realise how long it is. This last bit goes down the edge like that. So I'm going to sew that down. Again, I'm starting at the top, the 1/4 of an inch all the way down. And then I'm just going to stop about 2 or 3 inches away from where the edge of the bit that I started off with, the extra bit. What I'm going to do is just sort of clip that round the corner, and then I'm just going to stop a couple of inches away from that. But I'll come to that in a minute and I'll show you. It'll be easier. All right, see you in a minute. I'm just going to the end now of where I'm joining the 2 ends of the binding together. So I'll just bring you down to the machine. Still getting used to this. So I've got, this is the end piece, and what I did, if you remember, we had this overlap sort of coming this way along. I've clipped that down along the corner of the quilt, and with this end piece, I'm just folding that at an envelope angle back. So just the end piece of the first, the beginning of the binding that we had the overlap. I'm just folding that from the corner so the corner goes to the edge of the quilt. Okay, so it's just like in a triangle. And then with this piece, which is the piece I've been sewing on, I'm just going to pop that over the top and just past. I just want it to just go over the top of that little envelope triangle corner that we've just folded down. Okay, I'm just going to hold it there a minute, and I'm just going to use my scissors to just cut at an angle. Just along there. Just put that to one side a minute. And that's just to prevent some of the bulk that I'm going to have in. And all I'm going to do now is just carry on sewing down over the top of all of that I've just folded. Like I say, you can just do that straight if you want. And if I was to do it straight, and I think I did that on the video I did at Christmas, I just did those straight. So you don't have to do it at an angle if it is feeling a bit fiddly. I folded this corner here the same way as I did the other corners. Just remove that clip, holding it in place. keeping that 1/4 inch seam allowance and right to the end. So this part is the angle that I cut off. What you've just got to make sure is that there's a good overlap, because if you don't have an overlap and it's just at the end, you're going to have that horrible seam to deal with. But with it going over the edge and sewing it over, when you fold all this back, that's going to be hidden, so it's going to be like that. And again, you've got your same mitered corner at the end. Okay, so I'm just going to pull you back up. There we go. I can see, when I see my reflection in the, I can see the 2 circles in my glasses, and that's from the light around I suppose it's a selfie stick. Now I've pointed that out, you probably won't stop seeing them. Same as me. So what I've done now is I've attached all the binding to the quilt. So what we need to do now is we're just going to fold all of that over the edge. So from the right side, bring you around a bit, is fold. And if you remember, I made a fold myself. Now you can use that fold, or if you haven't done a fold, it doesn't matter. You can just basically fold it back and iron it in place. So I'm going to use that fold that I've done, and on the back, let's move this all out of the way. And when it's big hefty quilt, just push you back a bit now, so I've got a bit of room. The big hefty quilt, it's hard to manoeuvre. So on the back it looks like this. Okay, so you've got there's your 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can do it bigger than that if you want. It's up to you. If you got it too big, you just need to trim it down a little bit. I don't really need, because I've got quite a lot of binding here. So that's from the fold that I did. And what I need to do is just tuck that end piece under. So I'm going to tuck the end piece under, again about 1/4 inch, and fold it flat onto the back of the quilt, making sure that you've covered that seam. Okay, so if I'm folding that back, tucking that under 1/4 inch, I'm then going to clip it. You can use pins if you want, or it's up to you, but I'm just going to clip it. So when you get to the corners, and what I'll do this time is I will clip it all the way round, because I'm going to hand stitch this in place. And because I'm hand stitching it, I haven't got the walking foot, or the foot, I didn't use a walking foot. You can use a walking foot, but I haven't got the machine foot pushing the fabric along so that it could sort of gather up. So when it comes to the corners, it's the same thing. You're just folding it, you have that bit tucked under, and that will just fold over as a mitre at the back as well. So it's just the same as, you've just machined the top. It's just the same, but I'm hand sewing the bottom in. And the reason I'm hand sewing the bottom is because I just think it looks that neater. If you were to machine stitch it, you've got to kind of, it depends how you're going to do it, you see. With that, I would make sure that that's folded under at the back, but I'd stitch in the ditch along that seam. But you've got to make sure as you fold it under that you're catching it all, otherwise you're going to have like ends sticking out, or you might miss it altogether. I like hand sewing, so I'm just going to sit in front of the TV tonight and just hand sew all that down. Okay, So I'll just show you one more time. So the back, this is folded over the back. There's the back. You've got to cover this row of stitching from where you've sewn the binding on the front. Fold it over, and as I said, I've made that fold, so that makes that easier. This has got to be tucked under about 1/4 of an inch, a little bit more if you want to. Probably wouldn't do it much more because you need to make sure that it covers this seam. So I'm going to clip it in place. I'm going to clip all the way around, so that's all in place, all the way around, that 1/4 of an inch seam, just over that stitch line. And so I'm going to just hands, and all I'm doing is just like a little whip stitch all the way along. But I'm going to be using this 50 weight, just show you around, 50 weight cotton that I've used all the way through for this quilt. And because it's kind of like this light dove grey, it blends in and you won't see it. I'm quite a neat hand sewer, so you're not really going to see, and I'll just be taking in the ends, sewing in the ends. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and do that, and then I'll come back to you for the finished result. And there we have it, finished, the Dreamy Owl quilt. All the binding sewn on, machine stitched at the front, hand stitched at the back, and it's completely finished. Stick around to the very end and then you'll see it in its full glory. Okay, so if you like what you've seen, you've liked this episode, think about giving me a thumbs up. There'll be other series that I'm planning on doing in the future. I'm not sure which one's coming up next, but there'll be other videos. If you're enjoying the videos, think about subscribing. If you subscribe, you can press the, oh, what's up, little Betty? If you subscribe, you can press the alert button, and then you know when another video is coming on, because it's not really a strict sort of program that I do. I try and do them every sort of couple of weeks, but sometimes it's a little bit longer, sometimes it's a little bit sooner. So by pressing the alert button, you'll know when something's coming on. So I'll leave you to it. Like I say, if you watch to the very end, you'll see the quilt in its full glory. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye.